Is Israel all alone in the world? It's a little bit of a terrifying thought. A small country, a democratic country, a Jewish homeland that was established really in the aftermath of the Holocaust, a country that is surrounded by many deadly enemies, surrounded by people who are chanting death to Israel, that have launched multiple wars against Israel. And the fact that Israel is even still there has been something of a miracle of modern times. Now, it's very clear that ever since 1948, Israel has had one reliable friend. It had more than one in the beginning. In fact, it was Britain that played a critical role in the establishment of the State of Israel. But the one reliable friend over the past half century or more has been the United States. But that is changing. It started changing dramatically under Obama, who essentially made it very clear his hostility to Netanyahu and to the State of Israel. Obama was, of course, driven by this manic anti-colonialism. He was on the side of the Palestinians. The basic rule with Obama was really simple. If it benefited the United States, he was against it. If it hurt the United States, he was for it. And if you look at the Middle East, you can see perfect corroboration. Who's our deadly enemy in the region? Iran. Obama, of course, makes the Iran deal with Iran. He gives them all kinds of money, sends suitcases of cash. Who are our friends in the region? Well, we had Egypt. And so Obama's like, let's overthrow the ruler of Egypt, Mubarak. Let's support the Arab Spring so we can get some enemies of America in there. The Muslim Brotherhood, perhaps, and he did with Morsi. Fortunately, the military stepped in and pushed Morsi out. So this is Obama. This is what he does. And Israel to him was a country to be undermined at every stage. And Netanyahu knew that. And the reason Netanyahu resisted Obama was because he recognized that Obama's hatred wasn't just for Netanyahu. It was for the State of Israel. Now, that is being continued by Biden, who began his term really by calling all kinds of leaders. Sometimes he put Kamala on the phone because, he was taking an early nap. But he abstained from calling Netanyahu to send him a message. Listen, buddy, we're going to be calling the shots. You're going to be at our beck and call, and don't think you can be pushing us around. So ordinarily, I would be a little bit apprehensive for the fate of Israel, with no friends if it doesn't have the United States. But the good news is that Israel has been saved, I think, by Trump. This may seem like an odd thing to say, but the truth of it is Trump did what could almost be called the diplomatically impossible. He brought together Arab countries into deals with Israel. And those deals, by the way, outlived Trump. So even though Trump is gone, the deal with the UAE, the deal with Bahrain, the relationships with Jordan and Kuwait and the Gulf kingdoms and even Saudi Arabia, a critically important country in the region, Trump brokered those deals. Many other people like you, there's that clip I've played before on this podcast of John Kerry. Oh, there's no way any of these deals can be done without the Palestinians. He just says this with this kind of avuncular sense of superiority. Trump proved people like that to be the buffoons that they truly are. Trump is like, you say it can't be done? Okay, here I am. I have no experience in politics. Let me dust off my hands. There, it's done. There, it's done again. There, it's done a third time. So Trump actually embarrassed these people by doing it again and again. But the long-term benefit of it is that even after Trump is gone, Netanyahu can still make a phone call to the UAE, and he can make a phone call to the Saudis. So the bottom line of it is Netanyahu is not as isolated as he was before. Israel isn't as isolated as it was before. Israel now has real allies, Muslim allies, if you can believe it, in the region. These are allies who recognize that they have less to fear from Israel and more to fear from an irredentist Iran. Iran, too, is building its set of allies. Regimes like Qatar, which are doing Iran's bidding in the region. Iran is making friends abroad, as in Venezuela. So there's essentially a divide in the Muslim world now, but one part of that Muslim world which wants democracy, which wants freedom, which supports the United States, also supports Israel. Biden may do what he can to undermine Israel, but Israel does have some new friends in the region, And those friends, in the end, I think will be important to protecting Israel's security.